Yeah, you can make wine so relatable, and that's something that we're really trying to do with Approachment is like make really simple pairings. Like, why don't we pair with our everyday foods? Why don't we pair with our Ritz crackers or whatever we have in the kitchen and just make it so easy to do instead of panicking about like having steak tartare or something that you're never going to cook or never going to have around or never going to have the opportunity to go eat. Like, we can make this a lot easier than it is, and we can make this super fun, and it doesn't have to be intimidating. We can make it easy.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Barrels and Roots podcast. I am Sean Trace. I'm your host, and I have an awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and what you do?
I'm Jessica West, and I have a very small wine brand in the Willamette Valley called Approachment Wines with my husband, Hayden. And Approachment is kind of a marriage of his philosophies and my philosophies of making wine. And so we kind of play, we get creative, we're curious. So it's been a really fun little journey to grow a brand and see what we can do with it. So
That's awesome. Now, what first pulled you into winemaking? Was it like a single bottle? Did you have a moment at a vineyard, or was this something completely unexpected?
totally unexpected. I was in the coffee business in high school and college. And I drank
Okay.
wine, but of course it was, sweet Riesling. It was, kind of your basic beginner wines. And in college, I started to manage a coffee shop that had a wine program. And of course, it was very intimidating at first. So I was like, I need to figure this out because I don't want to talk about this stuff with people. But I did find a lot of similarities between, coffee drinks and wine because, coffee is just very ritual and wine's very ritual. So as I started to learn more, there's a community college up in this area called Chemeketa, and they have a very small winemaking program that's funded by some of the bigger wineries in the area. And so they offer classes. They offer a 2-year degree program, which I ended up going through, but they offer these, basic winemaking classes and wine education classes. So I just started taking those and just kind of learning on my own. And then I did the kind of other basic thing where I emailed everybody in my area at a winery, like at the wineries, and just said, "Hey, I'm Jessica. I'm curious about wine. Can I come shadow you? Can I come take a look at your place? I'm just curious. What can I do to help you?" kind of thing. And of course, nobody reached out except for one guy. And he was like, "Yeah, come out. You can label bottles." And this was in the Eugene area, which is very sparse with wineries. It's not like a booming industry yet. Now there's a lot more, but this was a very tiny place. So he's like, "You can come label bottles. I need some help in the tasting room." And I was like, "Awesome. This is cool." So I went up there and it happened to be harvest time. And he was like, "Run pHs, do punch downs." And I was like, What? What are you talking about? What does that mean?" And so I just started doing that. And I was like, "This is pretty awesome." And I was working in the tasting room like one day a week, and I realized like people are really happy in this industry, happy, drinking wine and learning about wine and visiting. And I just really enjoyed that aspect of it. It was just like this is a place where people are really enjoying themselves. And I was like, I just want to dive more into this. And so that's what I did. I just kept going. I started working at a wine shop where I got the opportunity to learn a lot about lots of different wines from across the world. So I got to taste a lot and learn a lot and get really familiar with, many, many different regions and wine styles. And then I just started working harvest. So after I was kind of introduced to the back of house, I was like, I want to work harvest. And then I got the bug from there.
That's actually awesome.
Yeah.
And it is intimidating. It is intimidating when you start talking about wines and start getting into it because in the beginning, there's a lot to learn. I actually am. I had a guest on the other week, and we're actually going to do another episode this week. And it's a little silly, but I love it. We're going to talk about, we're breaking down the different types of wines into the 4 Harry Potter houses and
Oh, I
guessing,
love that.
right?
Yeah.
Guessing what type of wine is each one. And we have this
Yeah.
huge outline, like What are the, what was it? Oh man, I don't have it in front of me, but we went through all of them, and it's just really good. And I was just like, once I start framing it that way, I was like, this is so much less intimidating. Like, this
Yeah,
is really
and
something I can wrap my mind around?
yeah, you can make wine so relatable, and that's something that we're really trying to do with Approachment is like make really simple pairings. Like, why don't we pair with our everyday foods? Why don't we pair with our Ritz crackers or whatever we have in the kitchen and just make it so easy to do instead of
Yeah.
panicking about like having steak tartare or something that you're never going to cook or never going to have around or never going to have the
Right.
opportunity to go eat. Like, we can make this a lot easier than it is, and we can make this super fun, and it doesn't have to be intimidating. We can make it easy.
This has been the last couple of episodes that I've had is like people were talking about, we're getting people are misunderstanding wine. Like there's this
Mhm.
whole elite, it is the drink of the elite, and people just have this and like, come on, man. For thousands of years, this was this wonderful beverage that people just had with meals. And the
Yeah.
food pairings were like, what's grandma cooking tonight? Well, grandma made this. That's awesome. Well, grandma's a
Yep.
great cook. What wine do we have? Well, we got this one wine. Well, it's probably going to go pretty well together because that's what we've got?
Yeah, no, I love that, and I love finding ways to make it easy and approachable, and ways for people to understand it that doesn't have to be, yeah, about it doesn't always have to be about food. It can be about Harry Potter, and that's super fun
Right.
and like approachable, and like that's a cool experience.
Right. Exactly. And I think that that's just the thing. Like, well, if I want to, my daughter, uh, I am from California, grew up in the Napa Valley, but part of the time I spend in Vietnam. I split my time between Asia and the US.
Cool.
And my daughter grew up in Vietnam. And one of the things here in Vietnam, she doesn't have much of a framework for snow. Like, it's a tropical country, man. There's just not much snow. And so for a couple years before we flew back during a time of year that had snow to a region with snow in the US, I had to try to explain to her snow and conceptualize it. It's like, and it's funny because we went to a photo shoot for Christmas, like, and they had all of this like stuffing and fluff that looked like snow. And they were like, "Go like this to your face." And I was looking at it, she's like, and she's doing this, these cute, and I was like, "You're not gonna do that with real snow. That snow's cold, man. You're not just gonna be like, let's rub it on our face." And why I'm bringing this up is because it's context that you get someone who's never experienced water, or swimming in water. They can't process that. And the same thing happens with wine. Like if you haven't grown up with it, if you haven't experienced, this around you, it is daunting to try to sit there and wade into that world, especially when there's all of this like, well, that's not the correct pairing.
Yeah.
Come on. Come on.
Yeah.
Really?
I hate
Does it
that
have
stuff.
to?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like that.
No, no, not at all. And yeah,
Yeah.
and I think we're getting better about it as an
Yeah.
industry. Um, but it can always be better.
Talk to me about your philosophy as a winemaker. And if you had to describe your winemaking philosophy as a personality, um, what would it be like?
Um, I would say so I like wines that are young and fresh. So I like
Oh,
and funny enough, wines that you don't have to pair with food. So
okay.
I would say I like to drink those wines, so I like to make those wines. So I guess that's I'm trying to think of like a personality,
See,
and it would
I'm
probably
drifting
be,
toward Harry Potter people right now, man. That's where my
yeah,
brain's
maybe
going.
that's it.
Are
Maybe
you
that is
going for
it.
Luna? Is it a Luna? Is it a Hermione wine?
I don't even know. So it's yeah, so that feels very vague, but and also we're trying to be curious with the
Okay.
winemaking
So
And
curious. I like that.
the obviously we start in the vineyard, and which just feels so cliche to say that, but we have to make sure that we have the fruit, the best fruit, and the fruit
Yeah.
speaking to us, and we're doing what the fruit wants. But then once we
Ooh.
get in the winery, we have to make sure we're still doing what the fruit wants and treating it the way that it wants. So, and then maximizing the flavors that we want, um, while still maintaining what we want to get out of it. So that's also feels very vague and cliche to say, but um, our goal is to make energetic wines, thoughtful wines, intentional wines, um, but at the same time trying to balance what the wine wants for itself, if that makes any sense.
No, that's beautiful because I think that people forget that wine is this living thing,
Mhm.
and like it comes from these grapes, which are very much alive, and they're very much doing their own thing, they're
Yeah.
out there growing. They are, and it depends on, I mean, for people who haven't worked with plants, it's wild because, like, certainly you can do certain things to help them grow, but is there a lot of sun? Is it a warm summer? Is it,
Right.
what are the different like things going on around you,
Yeah.
I remember watching this movie back in the day, a long time ago, and they had a character, and I believe it might have been, oh man, I think the character was playing John Quincy Adams, one of the early presidents. And what I remember specifically is that at that time he had this purple flower. I don't know if it's a posy or something, but like it was a flower that just didn't grow. It's not posy. I can't remember my flowers right now, but it was this little purple flower, an African violet. That's what it was. It was an African violet that wasn't supposed to be growing in New England. Like, and it was one of the prized things in his greenhouse because it needed warmth. And I don't know if you've been to New England in the wintertime, but warmth is something that is just non-existent in New England in the wintertime. And here was this little plant, and it was struggling to survive in that climate, but yet he was able to keep it going. But it was what the plant wants, And so
Mhm.
it's so interesting to talk about what the plant wants because it has wines. I've spoken to so many winemakers that tell me wines have their own personality. They've got their own
Absolutely.
thing that they want to do, and you
Yeah.
just are on for the ride.
Yeah. And you have to honor that.
How does one honor that then?
Farming practices. I think organic farming is pretty important. No, just understanding um yields, understanding soil types, understanding
Hmm.
just where the sun shines and where you
Right.
want to leave crop load. And it's really like this whole kind of ecosystem of what you just understanding where, yeah, where does the sun shine on this particular thing, where do we have vigor, and just playing into that and leaning into that and treating it the way that it wants. I mean, I know that sounds vague, but
No.
that's sort of how I deal with it when I know that we have low vigor here, we have high vigor here. Like we just need to kind of take a step back and let it do its thing, and then intervene when we need to, which is rare, but that's kind of my philosophy in the vineyard.
That's awesome. Why do you think wine continues to matter in people's life today? I mean, it's been around for thousands of years. Why do you think, what makes it, special and more important than some other drink?
I think it's a big investment, and
Mm,
it brings a lot of people together. It's definitely community driven beverage. It's something that people can you know justify opening with many people and
yeah,
having with meals, and it has been around for such a long time that it's just it's kind of important in people's day-to-day lives.
yeah.
And I think just his the history and the culture of it, I think keeps it alive. Like I'm curious if we're going to see seltzer in 100 years.
Right,
Like,
right.
I doubt it.
Probably not,
Like so, but yeah, there's just like, and it is a big investment, and there is a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of um there's just yeah, there's yeah, and it's delicious. It's the best
right?
beverage, I think.
I'm with you. I when I asked that question, I was thinking of questions, but then I'm sadly started thinking idiocracy. And like in the future, will they be drinking when you answered it just my brain went to idiocracy. Was it Brano or whatever they said, you know? But it is something that, in 200 years, I'm sure people will still be enjoying wine. And the
Mhm.
processes will probably still be pretty similar to what we're
Yeah.
doing now. Like that's one of
Mhm.
the things that's fascinating to me. Like I was looking at this this diagram and it showed like how people traveled 2000 years ago and it showed a person in a chariot. And it's like how people were traveling 200 years ago as a person in a wagon. And like how people are traveling now. And it's like we've had this massive jump forward in technology around the whole planet. I remember even when I first moved to Vietnam and that was in 2001. I've
Wow.
gone back and forth since then. But to make a phone call to America, you had to go to this little booth and there was like one phone and like one booth that you could use, and it was like $1 a minute, and it's like
Yeah.
I was like, "Hey mom, I love you. I'm alive. Everything's okay. I had a motorcycle accident, but I'm okay." And my mom's like, "What the?" I gotta go. This is already like $15. I love you, right? But I gotta go. Talk to you later. Click. But now,
Yeah.
like I FaceTime with my family every day, and like we're doing this across the world right now.
Yep.
Where am I going with this? We've had so much change, and so much has been the same. But for winemaking, the processes are probably still quite similar to how they were making wine 2,000 years ago. And
Mhm.
in 1,000 years in the future, they're probably also still going to be drawing from some of the same roots. And it's this thing that is so timeless for humans.
Yep. Yes, exactly. Yeah, which is kinda awesome. I'm sure there's gonna be some funny AI farming techniques or
Yeah,
some crazy things coming around, but hopefully that will only improve our processes, not
right.
hinder them, but it is a timeless beverage, and which is really awesome to think about.
Yeah. What's something most people get wrong about wine that you wish you could clear up?
That it's, like, only for rich people and old people, and I don't know that people get that wrong, but it just seems like that seems to be, like, the the demographic that's coming around, and the young people are less probably curious about it at this time, and I'm trying to change that. But, yeah, and I don't know if that's getting things wrong, but, I guess there's those little things like the food pairings and, that you have to have certain glassware to enjoy wine, or you have like, a lot there's a lot of that tiny stuff that adds up, where sometimes I'm like, I have added ice cubes to my Pinot Gris in the summertime. Sometimes that's okay to do. Or I have put Pinot Gris in a mason jar before, that's okay to do. So I think people think you have to have a set of a set of things to enjoy wine, but you don't.
You don't. When I
No.
was in school in university in the Napa Valley, I was not a wealthy student. I was a student, and we were growing up in Napa Valley, and it was like beautiful, and we were surrounded by amazing wine. But as a student, I didn't have the money to go buy the expensive glassware. I didn't have the money to go and do this and
Right.
that. And so I was like, I remember once I was drinking wine from a mug, and
Yeah.
one of my friends was like, "That's not how you're supposed to do it." And I was like, "But I'm enjoying it." Like
Exactly.
is it wrong if you still find joy in it? And I said, let's go back 2,000 years and look at what they were drinking out of, some
Yeah.
type of wild thing, It's simply about finding it, enjoying the process, because certainly we can get really uptight, and maybe there is stuff that allows things to be better. But I've seen so much gimmicky looking stuff sold at some of the shops.
I know.
Pour this in here, and it's gonna
Oh,
aerate all
yeah.
this, and you're like, or maybe just enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's one thing people, can get wrong is that you have to spend a lot of money on a good
Yes.
bottle of wine, or you have to spend a lot of money on gadgets. But you can also play around, like, with different glassware. Try the wine in a mug, try the wine in the mason jar. You can play. There's no rules with wine, and that's kind of fun if you don't have the tools sitting around, like, use what you have, and pair with what you have, and it can be a lot. Yeah, it can be a lot more easy than we're making it.
I love that, what you were talking about, like pairing with Ritz crackers. And like, I live in Vietnam, and and I sit there, and every day we eat foods that have flavors that you don't have in the West, and like that's not a
Right.
traditional pairing. So
Hmm.
can you not enjoy wine? Well, no, no, no. There's no way. Of course, you can enjoy wine,
Hmm.
but you have to step outside of the box of
Yes.
what you've been told, of what everyone says. And, so much of the industry loves to be in that box.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that, what wine pairs with pho? Well, I don't know, but let's figure
Yeah.
it out. Let's
Yeah.
try some wines. And until we get one that's just like, yeah, that goes well together.
Yeah, and when you nail it, it's so exciting and fun and awesome, and it's magic. It's like, "Oh my god, this is so cool."
Right? But it takes a place of safety. There was this great book that I read about great teams. And what they did is they were studying these different teams, and they were looking at what were the things that allowed certain groups to function highly. And what they found was that the main thing that destroyed great teams and progress was, like, actually fear. Like, if you have a team and they start getting into a place of fear for whatever reason, whether it's a, over controlling supervisor, whether it's um, punishments or things. I had one boss a long time ago. I taught at this one school part time when I was living in LA, and she had a window that looked into my classroom, and I would just see this eye peeking through the window every now and then, and I was just, like, I had these curtains up, and I just felt nervous all the time, and it just was a horrible job. But what they found was that if you can make people feel safe, if you can make them feel safe, they're able to achieve great things. And I think that that's one of the things that I said to one of my guests before. I remember going to a tasting room in the Napa Valley, and some people came in that didn't look like they were super well to do. They didn't look, they were just wearing kind of like beachy clothes. And like most of the people in that tasting room were like, hmm. And then there was this one guy that was like, well, I'm just chilling here today. And like, he was one of the people working in the tasting room. He's like, well, come on in, guys. Do you guys like wine? We don't know anything about wine. Well, you came to the right place, because I do, and I'm going to teach you
Uh-huh.
guys how to have some fun. And
Uh-huh.
they had a blast, and they felt safe. And you know what? They bought a bunch of wine when they left, because
I
this
bet.
guy,
Yeah.
like, we went to all these places and no one wanted to talk to us. And they were like, we've got all this money and we wanted to buy some wine, and we're here. We don't get to travel that much, but we saved up for this. And I love that, because they were just wanting to explore, to feel things out, and to have a fun time and to
Uh-huh.
learn. But this person allowed them to feel safe, and it was allowing that to happen.
Yeah, and Peyton and I always talk about how wines always kind of taste the best when you're in a moment and with people and in an environment where it's just awesome. You have your people, you have your foods, you have whatever that moment is. The wine's just the best. It's like, doesn't really matter. It's just like, this is the moment, this is the wine, and it's just like, it's so enjoyable because in that place and that time. And so we always talk about that, like why we like wines at certain times. And like it's usually because we're with the people that we love, and we're eating awesome foods, and we're laughing, and we're having a great time, we're connecting. And so the wine tastes better like when you're
That's
in those
awesome.
environments, like
Do you think about that too? I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about wines like this as well. Like, when you open up a bottle of wine, unless you're kind of gung ho like that, you're most likely going to be sharing it with people.
Mhm.
You're not going to be like, "This is all for me, you
Right.
guys. Deal with it." I mean, if that's how you like to party, like that's how you like to party.
Each
No
their
judgment
own.
on that.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that. But like, most of the time, you open a bottle and you're like, "Let's experience this together." You know what? This is a bottle. This is a super, fun thing. I've had this for a while. It's been aging, and I don't know what it's going to taste like. Let's check this out together, and you get to experience it. And most people, it's not even like that. Like you said, there's the moment.
Mhm.
Maybe it's you haven't seen these people in a long time, and it's not just that, but you're like, I want to make this even more special, so I'm going to bring out this wine that is special as well. And now we have this special moment that is surrounded by this special bonding experience by this special wine. It's
Yeah.
amazing like that.
It is amazing. It's really a connective beverage, and it's cool like that because I don't know any other beverages like that
No,
besides maybe
beer,
coffee.
you
You know,
buy some beers, and it's like you have your own beer, you've got your beer. And
right?
normally people at the party will buy a bunch of different types of beer, so you're not even having that shared experience. Maybe you're
No,
drinking this beer and you're drinking that beer. But
exactly.
coffee, I can see that, but it's
But they
still,
are different again.
they're different,
Hmm.
very different. Well, let me ask you this next one. Um, can you tell me, can you think about like either what a harvest or a vineyard moment or some the type of experience that you thought about the whole winemaking thing, and you go, yeah, this right here, this is why I do this.
Hmm. Man, it's a combination of things. It's every in winemaking, every season, there's something exciting going on. Like harvest is obviously like really exciting, but it's also the most nerve wracking. It's the most pressure because that's the time, that one
Yeah.
time that we have to do the right thing and to make it perfect and to so that's always very surreal. Like that's always this
Mm,
really special time, and it's hard, and it's in that every time I'm in harvest, I get excited because I'm like, this, I do this because of this work and like what it's going to be. And it's like just so much curiosity of what's going to happen in the next few months with this wine, and how, what are we going to see? And um, so I don't know if there's like particular moment. I've had certain wines where I was like, definitely like love this wine, and I love Oregon for this, and I'm dedicated to Oregon because of this Pinot Noir, and
mm,
I love that, and I'm I'm in it.
yeah.
And that's one thing I do love about Oregon is we make awesome Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and we're getting involved in sparkling wine, and we're really evolving as a region, and um, so I don't know. It's like it's hard to pinpoint each moment, but it's like every season there's something magical where I'm like, okay, this is why I do this. When we're finally at bottling, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, here we are. We did it. Like, and then we go into like a sales season where I'm like, okay, now I'm going to show this wine to people. Like,
Yeah.
hope they like it. And then,
Right.
and then there's all of the lab work, and there's, just trying to tweak everything and make sure everything is sound. And then like kind of this moment right now after harvest where it's sort of like chill. It's weird, but it's magical. It's like, wow, we just did all this work, and it feels like it just flew by or whatever. But I don't know if I can come up with one moment. I'm sure there's one every year, and I'm just blanking.
No, but I mean, we just have so many cool ones. I mean, just thinking about the harvest. I mean, one of the things that for me that's so powerful is like after the harvest and the crush starts. That was my favorite time of year in the Napa Valley, in like the whole valley. smells like wine. And you're just like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. My wife, I told her about it. I was like, this is, you haven't been back during this season yet. We got there and she was like, this is amazing. This is like
Yeah.
a feast for the senses. But it's so much like it's not one moment that you remember. It's like so much. But let me ask you
Mhm.
this. What do you think younger drinkers are looking for from wine today? And do do you, if they haven't like explored it, why should they?
I think they're looking for, well, I'm curious if, I mean, I'm old enough that I didn't have like iPads and COVID in the middle of school, so
Right.
I don't know if there's like a social anxiety or something with young people where going out and socializing is more rare than it was when I was young. Where you go to the bar to meet your friends, or you go to the library, or you go out to do stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of people now can just do that from their phone. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's just like a lack of like in-person socializing. And I'm truly like not sure. And I'm curious if that's a reason why you're not seeing a lot of groups of young people getting together and sharing bottles of wine. Um, or if it's about approachability and accessibility and affordability, or if wine is still has this like old person like
Right.
expensive, you got to cellar it, you got, like you got to wait a long time to enjoy it, or um so I don't know, maybe it's a combo of those things, but I think there's just, yeah, that's my best guess.
It's interesting because I mean, you think about that. There is a change in like I mean, yeah, think about like having COVID in the middle of school, like there's just this major challenge and I see it with my daughter. There is we do a lot to help her continue to get out and socialize like, I did when I was a kid. She goes out
Yeah.
to classes, she goes to goes to activities and sports classes and music classes with other kids. But yet there still is just this sometimes, you see it in the gaming world and it's just this tightness that can happen, when she gets around people that are real people. And one of the things is, and I think that we had that too, but we just, maybe we had to just get over it because there weren't the other options. There just wasn't much
Yeah.
of an op. I remember I'm old enough to remember when, the first online games and like, wow, you can play it from different places. That's wild, and now,
Yeah.
it's the norm. But it's interesting because I feel like there is a lot to be offered to one of my friends. He was calling wine is a social lubricant, and I was just like, I
Yeah.
love that. I
Absolutely.
love
Yeah.
it brings people together, and it brings the stress levels down.
It does. Yeah. Yep, it is social lubricant, and it's interesting to think about a lot of young people getting together and having bottles of wine and how that could improve their quality of life if they
Right,
even knew.
right now we are in a place where there is so much tension just all around. I
Right.
mean, people on that side of the fence and people on this side of the fence, and you just want to sit there and go, "Hey, you guys, let's all come together, sit down, have some food and a glass of wine." And
Can you
you would
imagine?
think, can you imagine, like,
It would be a
if you
blast.
could,
Yeah.
it would be a blast because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, so much of our social ills come from this mistaken belief that this group is so much different from this group, but we're not.
Right.
We're
Right. We would
really
just
not.
figure out we're very similar and we all are striving for the same things, and like,
Right?
yeah, and we're all just people.
And we would have a wonderful beverage at the same time,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Um, if someone's just starting to appreciate wine, what's one simple idea or mindset that would help them enjoy it more?
I think I think just understanding that if it is a wine that you like, then that's a wine that you like. And it doesn't matter if anybody likes it or not. It's the wine that you like that is the best wine. So I think having your own opinion and not worrying about what everybody else kind of thinks. I mean, of course you want to talk about wine, but I think if you like wine, if you like that wine, then that's the wine, you know. If you like it, drink it. If you don't, don't. I think there's a lot of simplicity to it. And then so I think that's probably the first thing that I would probably tell somebody is like, you don't need to overthink this, you know? Like you don't have to like the same wines as everybody else.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I remember. I remember the first wine that I had that I really loved. And it was just like this aha moment. My friends were like, "Nah, I'm not a fan of that." And I was just like, dude, this is amazing. This is it's so delicious and so good. And it was interesting because it was like what we were talking about too. Bringing people together, and we have these different points of view and stuff. But there was also a really nice thing that I noticed growing up with other young people who were, you know, enjoying wines with me. We didn't have to agree. Yesterday, I posted something on social media, and an old friend of mine saw it, and he fired back at me a very pointed response, and I was so happy about it because it was just like we can have. And I was like, "Hey, brother, how you doing, man?" And I fired right back at him, and then I messaged him directly, and I was like, "Thank you for that. Thank you for that
Uh-huh.
debate, and for us
Uh-huh.
being able to have different opinions. It's
Yeah.
okay to have that." And
Yeah.
like, because I can think that this wine's amazing, and you can go, "That sucks," and
Totally.
both answers are correct.
Yeah. It's so subjective. Like it's silly for somebody to tell somebody else. It's like music. You can't tell somebody that they shouldn't like that song, you know? Like
Right?
that's weird, you know?
It's so true.
Yeah.
Well, looking back at your winemaking career, if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Um I would probably travel more. Um I would relax more. uh I've really dedicated most of my sorry, all of my winemaking in Oregon. So I've really like put roots in here, and which I'm very happy with. And I think that I also started when I was like 30 or like 29. So I probably would have seen if I could start earlier and traveled a little bit more, and would have relaxed a little bit more and slowed down when I thought it was stressful, and just sort of like, taken in a little bit more because I tend to just want to move really fast and be like, gotta soak it in. And
One last question. If there's a wine
yeah.
everyone should go try right now, what wine would you recommend to go out and try?
Ooh, I'm really into Special Club champagne. Not that that's affordable, but I would say like a Jiminy Special Club champagne, or if you like Oregon wine, Bethel Heights Pinot Noir,
So
my
good.
favorite. Yeah, classic, classic Oregon wine. Yeah.
Where can people find out more about your winery and the wines you're making?
On my website, approachmentwines.com. I also have a pretty active Instagram, Approachment Wine, so everything's the same handle. I'm also easily available by email and text, so people want to find out any information. I'm very easy to access.